Dream Chasers, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Adam Carswell, aka General Moses, and I'm joined today by another. I almost said leader of the new school. He might have been featured on some of those compilations. I'll have to ask him here, but a fellow alumni of the Toolroom Academy. We're here today with Redux Saints. I guess we could also maybe go with your real name since we have it here on Zoom. So
Sure. My real name is Jason Miller.
yeah.
What I did is I didn't want to be associated with the Jason Miller from the Trump era, so I put my middle name on Facebook. So now it's Jason Trevor Miller.
Nice. Let me go ahead and do this here because you can do this on Zoom for anyone watching visually right now. We got to get the stage name in there. So Redux Saints, Jason, good to have you here. The story of us getting connected is Jason was highlighted a couple of weeks ago on Toolroom Radio as the Academy track of the week. And I personally, can't help but gravitate towards those tracks, especially because we're kind of coming from the same ether. And he has this banger that is now out on his own label, which I don't know if you want to show off the merch there. The DTL, yeah, DTLA, Deep Tech LA, which I mean, I got a billion questions for you on that too. But anyways, his latest In Need featuring Divine.
Yeah, Divine out of the Netherlands.
Oh, cool. Cool. Didn't know she was based. Anyways, it's a banger, or as he might say in his world, a heater. He's got a playlist called Heaters on Spotify by DTLA. Anyways, dude, great song. It's what got us here. And I gotta ask you, I mean, how did you first come across Toolroom in your journey?
Ooh. Okay, so when I first, well, man, I've been listening to music forever, electronic music, probably clubbing since the early 2000s. But I grew up in Chicago before I moved to Los Angeles, and Tool Room was always one of the, seeing Mark Knight play in Chicago was always like a thing that my friends and I did. So we had been following them forever. Um, and then what happened was is that, as I was trying to figure out what direction to go with my music. When I first started Redux Saints, I went to a school in California called Icon Collective. It was a year intense music production program, and it's a great foundational program. Like I learned scales, I learned piano, you learn theory and all this stuff, but it's not like genre specific. So I was looking for more of like, well, okay, who can kind of teach me the ropes of a specific genre? And that's why I was the first US student to go through the Toolroom Academy Mastery program, and they were kind of putting it together as like kind of I was going through it, and it kind of helped give Redux Saints a direction on where it went. Now, when I first started Redux Saints, I was more kind of on the progressive house side because I was a huge fan of trance growing up. And so it was interesting as good as working through the Toolroom program, you work with their AR, and they kept on, that was like their first feedback. You got to take those elements out, you got to strip them back. And it was funny because Pete Griffith said to me, he goes, I'm sure you're familiar with him. He said, we need to have a progressive element exorcism because like I couldn't stop doing it. So eventually, like it was more of like me learning the genre of
Sure.
understanding the different elements and it just coming from a different genre because I was like, I wasn't quite sure that. So as I kind of like got that and mastered it and figured out, the difference between the bass lines and the elements and the drums used in between the two, I even got to a point where I was doing, my Redux Saints, and I still wanted to produce those kind of tracks. So I actually created my second moniker, which is called Placebo Effect, which releases, several tracks, on my label as well too. And that's what kind of still has those elements of the old school like trance in it, but it's more melodic. I modernized it with melodic techno type, sounds and stuff like that. So that kind of sits in the melodic techno progressive house element. But overall, Toolroom was a great program for me because that was exactly what I needed at that time to give me direction to like, okay, you've got this foundation. Now where do you go with it? And the Toolroom program definitely provided that guidance for me.
Wow. Yeah, I love I've done maybe like 5 or 6 interviews like this with other graduates. I'd say you're, from my feel right now, one of the more senior graduates that I've gotten to talk to, and to hear the background that you already had coming into this, and then the value that you got out of it. Because for me, I mean, I'll just keep it 100. I'm still very green, and that was the value I got. Was like, I'm a rookie. I don't know what ducks to get in a row right now, so please tell me which ducks. You already had like this foundation coming in that's just pretty unique. So, what I want to know, well, first of all, because you mentioned going to see Mark Knight with your friends. I've been nerding out on like some 2000 to 2003 to like 2010 Toolroom records lately, which up until now I pretty much hardly even knew they existed, and now I'm like, wow, look at this body of work that exists that, like, I think a lot of us don't even realize it does, at least the new guys. Were you getting into Toolroom and what Mark was doing back like in the 2000s era?
Probably like the late 2000s, like or more around 2000s, because they were doing their tool room nights, and that's when they started doing their compilations, where they started pulling a lot of good acts who are like huge now, like
Right,
back in
right.
the early days back then. And then um, outside of like tech house, coming from Chicago, I was always a big fan of just Chicago house. Just absolutely loved it. So like it was a good kind of trance to saying like, okay, when you're in a club, you want to hear something that's got a little bit more driving force behind it. And that's why I kind of gravitated towards tech house, because it still had those elements that I absolutely love. If you listen to all my tracks, we always have the vocal hook that's required in tool room tracks, and I've always still gravitated to like the house, my origins of like, I love the soulful house, diva type vocal in it. And like if someone were to ask me to describe Divine's vocals, or May Marnie, who I did on my previous track with a vocalist, I would say that's really what I love, because that's actually kind of the basis of like the tool room, was like really beaten over your head. The vocal hook, you need to create an identity for your track, or create an idea of it, because the idea here is, and I've actually taken that AR into how I select tracks for Deep Tech Los Angeles. But it's like, you have to create that identity that someone's going to walk away from that track remembering something about it, because he would say is what I think what people find, and why do people say that a lot of the music sounds very similar? Like, why does it all sound alike? It's because it doesn't have that identity. It's like anyone can grab the tool room samples and put together a cool groove, but it's like, what makes that groove more, memorable than the other 100 groups that are released that week, So yeah, I really took a lot of just kind of the structure of kind of like how I approach, arrange, and create the ideas. The tool room, I would say, course really helped kind of form that for me.
Yeah. And In Need definitely does a phenomenal job. I don't know. Did you write the hook? Was that Divine? Like, where did that come?
So Divine. So this is what happened. So I did a track on Let There Be House with Divine. That
I'll
one,
just
because
say this: I've woke up multiple times with In Need, like, playing in my head. So
yeah.
continue.
So there we had Be the Light. So that was the first opportunity, and actually I was introduced to her by another producer called Kill Cassette. So he had released some stuff on DTLA, and he wanted to do a collab, and he's like, I've got this vocalist. He goes, the vocals are right up your alley. So we had a nice collab with it. And so then when I In Need was supposed to be the 50th single release for my label. So I was thinking about, well, what do I want to really represent my label here? It's kind of like my tech house sound, but like that type of vocal. So I reached out to her. She's like, yeah, absolutely. She loved the piano, she likes the way I do the piano chords, and then it brings the energy to the track. So she's like, well, why don't you create a groove and send it over to me, and I'll create something. Or she said to, and then I said, okay. Then she came back and said, well, I have these vocals. Can you do something with it? And they were fucking awesome. Absolutely fucking awesome to start with. So I took that, and it was supposed to be released in April. But what happens a lot of times with a vocalist is you get to a certain point with the track, and you're kind of like, well, what's that extra 10% that we can do? So we did back and forth, like some backing vocals, some diva, like shouts and stuff, and like that. It was kind of like the cherry on top stuff. But that took a little extra time, you know, and also because she's a vocalist, she threw some ideas back to us that I was like at first, like, I don't know about that. But then once I did it, it actually worked and came out great. So it was learning for me as well, too, coming from a vocalist, you know, doing it as well, too. So it turned out exactly how I wanted to do it. The only thing is that it came out like multiple months after, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because she was headlining a lot of Pride events in Amsterdam at that time. And she must have dropped it in every single one of her sets. And I had video footage of her playing it in front of
I
festival
was
crowds. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It worked out great. And she felt, you know, it really helps when the vocalist isn't an active DJ. You know, I've done tracks with other vocalists, and you know, it's their vocals were just as strong. But when you have them promoting it in that way as well, you know, it helps the release tremendously. So like before the track was already released, I already had so much video footage of you know, of her actually like playing it out. It was you know, that's great when you already have so much content just even going into the release.
it's and that's just such a great story. It's a healthy reminder, I feel like, for me and hopefully other DJs and producers out there, to take your time, right, and not rush, because I know I've got at least like 10 that need to be sent, and I'm just kind of sitting on them, and I don't know why, and I keep kicking myself and like, I need to send these in, which I do. But sometimes, like, you don't have to be in a rush, and that's just what I'm getting from what you shared, and it ended up working out for the better. So I'm still gonna see if I can send those in soon, but not kill myself, right?
Even to like what I did is like we created a club mix version of it, or the first version, which was supposed to be like the extended mix version. I'm like, it needs more, but there was still, the first version was good, so I called it the club mix. And then
Oh, yeah.
we worked on actually creating the extended version with all the extra parts to it. So
Cool.
it was kind of out eventually got to where it was.
So what was it like growing up in Chicago, gravitating towards house music? Because that's basically where it all started, right? So did you like it since day one, or like what was your first exposure to house music?
Yes. So it was like a maturity thing for me. Like first I was really into rock and roll. We used to go to all the Lollapaloozas. I think I went to like the first 6 of them.
Nice.
They were big in there, but that back then it was, it had a lot of different acts to it. So I was into hip hop, rock and roll. Then I went through my grunge phase, and then at the end of the grunge phase, I started listening to like Lords of Acid and like Nine Inch Nails, and like I started to like that more, that kind of like refined electronic sound. But in between, growing up in Chicago, when we would go to clubs, they'd be playing house, like the clubs back in the early days there. So like, we'd have like Derek Carter, or, you'd say Frankie Knuckles. I mean, that they were playing all the time, all around, the other thing is we'd also go to Crowbar all the time, and Carl Cox would be there playing, DJing on 4 vinyl decks. So we got a very, very good education early on of like, quality size music, because the big acts would come through here. Then, as I said, as I kind of like, I went through my phases of it, I fell absolutely in love with the scene and the music, probably around the 2000. I went to see in Vegas, there's this thing called Club Rubber. Club Rubber was basically, I think it was based out of San Diego, but it was one of the first times that like I just like was immersed in like the rave culture, and I
Sure.
absolutely fell in love with it. Fell in love with it from there. Was clubbing hard from that date on until still it. I club hard now, but the recovery is just not the same as it used to be.
Yeah, it changes over
Still love it
time,
today.
right?
Like here's a good example. We had a couple events here in Chicago, and everyone was like at the end of it, and I don't know if this was trying to make me feel good about myself, or there was just saying you're old as fuck, but they're like being like, we're so surprised, Jason, you made it out all 3 nights. And I'm just like, come on, guys. So I DJ'd Friday. I DJ'd, we went to after hours on Friday. Then I DJ'd Saturday. We went to after hours on Saturday. And then also went out Thursday night. So that
I was
was
gonna
the,
say, were you just playing like a couple nights ago?
yeah, we played a couple events in Chicago. We played a primary Then I played at one of my buddy's bars, kind of a local house night, the previous night. But yeah, I've had a nice little recovery of a couple weeks in between that before I leave for Amsterdam on Monday. So I should be ready to go for that week, because that week is just, it's like nonstop drinking from the moment you land through the end of it.
I want, so I haven't made it to an 80 yet,
You
and
should. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
I think the writing is on the wall. And as I was telling you before we went live, I've got my daughter's arriving in March, so I'm kind of in
Right.
dad mode. But I think by like next October, we can get grandma and grandpa, to do their thing.
The little babysitting duties, huh?
Right, right. But I wonder, so there's got to be a balancing act with ADE too, though, right? Because part of the reason, the main, I think the main focus, especially if you're in this industry, is to go create relationships, maybe find some more direction, whatever.
Yes.
How do you balance between the two? Because I'm sure there's moments where maybe if you go too hardcore on the party side, then you can miss like
Yeah,
some
that actually happened last year. Because like, so I own a software consulting company as well
Oh,
too.
cool.
So one of my clients is in Amsterdam. And we would always, like, when I would go there probably every 6 months. It's Tommy Hilfiger. They're owned by Van Heusen, but like great friends with the entire IT staff. So like the minute they hear I'm in town is the minute they have like a function for us to like go out and like have beers. And going out and having beers is like a major commitment in the evening. So like last year we did that Tuesday, and then I, you know, was overserved, I guess is the term, and missed the Toolroom mixer like the next day.
Oh,
So
yeah,
so this year I am promising myself, so you have to learn from your mistakes,
right.
and I'm sure there were missed opportunities, at that point. But this year, I feel like is the first full in effect year, I guess how I describe it, since the pandemic. I think last year people came, but not everyone was there. This year, I feel like everyone is back for it. So there's distributor parties, label parties, Spotify parties, like it's just I am busy every single minute. So my plan is to attend everything to my fullest ability. So yes, there's going to have to be a little bit of pacing going on. So I
Well,
guess that's the long-winded answer to your question.
you just inspired me in a way that I wasn't expecting as well, which is I wasn't aware that you're kind of like a business professional outside of music too, and that's been the angle in which I've entered here. And so sometimes I kind of feel like I have a connection piece missing because I'm not necessarily doing this full time. But to hear your story, your background, you have your own label and you run the consulting side of your life. I guess this would just be a question from me to you, but I mean, what do you see in me that you think I might not be paying attention to right now that you recommend I pay attention to?
I think everything you just have to consider is just the journey. I feel like some people are just lucky and get in the right spot at the right time and things take off. But that's not the case for the majority of people. So like, let's say you're starting a company and you take you understanding of that X number of years it's going to take to stabilize cash flow, and then there's X number of years to grow the brand, trust, and stuff like that. So you have to apply the same thing to music. Uh, Nothing happens overnight. There's stages of growth as an artist. There's like, first you win over your DJ buddies and the DJ networking, and stuff like that. Once you grow past that, then you've got fans. So there's various stages of it. Where am I in that stage? I'm in that stage of like, where I'm close to where the bus is taking off to hit that. And I have like over 100 releases. But
Wow.
I don't have a release on a major. So I'm taking kind of the harder traveled path of like saying, nah, you know what? I want in the long run to have own my music and to also have my own label to be able to release it and not wait around for other labels to get back to me. Don't get me wrong, I do it, but there's a point of where I have learned in the early days of to not get frustrated about the process is just to say to yourself, well, you know what? I'll pick a couple labels. It doesn't work out. It's going on DTLA because I value what I've done, you
Sure.
know, and that approach has really allowed me to like not get frustrated. I don't compare myself to other people. And I think that's another thing I would, is just be okay where you are in your journey. Don't compare yourself to others and just, continue on. There are several days, dude, when like, you get the business is like you get a slump for a quarter or something like that. And you're just like, like maybe more of my time should be focused there. But I think it's like you said before, it's kind of a balance. It's like I'm doing this passionate and is good, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. The real job is funding the whole music side of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, no.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. So until that can become a source of supporting income itself. And the reality is that for even major guys, you see like there are some posts. I think I forgot what producer was who was showing some of his Spotify stats of getting like 1 million plays and getting paid like nothing. So it's like it's
Right.
not you know it's even those like guys who look like the bus is taking off, they're struggling a bit, to be able to to support themselves. So I think you and I have an advantage of where you have the foundation there. You can find the time and put the effort into it. For me, it's also allows me to be a little bit more selective in like what I do. It's saying like, you know what, I don't need to take this gig because I need to pay my rent. I don't need to do this because of that. I don't need to act a certain way. I can be myself. I don't need to, and that again, that's an approach that may take longer to when the bus actually takes off for me, but I'm much more comfortable with what I'm doing. And when it does take off for me, it's going to be about my brand and who I am. So I think the longevity of that will outweigh a lot of these people who have like just blown up, and their music is maybe more on the tech house EDM side until that like dies down, and and then houses underground is back again. It's a cycle, it's a cycle. So
Yeah.
I'm always positioning myself in where I'm going to be like ahead of that curve, and not be taken down by a fad.
I think yeah, like the way you're describing it is kind of how I try to communicate it to my friends in my circles too. Is this is it's not necessary, it is a job, but like we have fun with it, it's not like you need it to pay rent next month, and because of that you can have more control, you can have more fun. I think that's the most important thing. I was like, you know what, I love how I was like, I love Toolroom, and I want to be able to like, before it's all said and done, I want to be able to tell my friends and family, like, hey, go listen to my bangers on Spotify. Like that's all I wanted. And here we are, and more good will come from that. But I'm just, it's just good to meet you and hear your story and background because I find it very relatable. Now, I want to talk about your label and your brand. I've got a lot of friends in LA. I know the acronym DTLA is a pretty popular one, especially for people who live out there. And the way that you've incorporated the acronym DTLA into a label with the skyline, I know if like if you hit the nail on the head. If you're from LA, people I would assume just have to be kind of gravitating towards what you're building. So, uh, where did the inspiration for the brand really come from?
Okay, so it started way back when I was a part of a different record label. It's called Crafted Music. It's out of the UK. And I was brought in as a partner, or invested in it. I was a partner. And at some point, like maybe 2 years into it, I kind of wanted to, just because I was an entrepreneur, I wanted to create like a sub brand of it being that I was in LA and kind of have some control over something that I could do locally and build and outside of like the main brand. So out of that I created DTLA, and I remember sitting in, I think it was when the Cubs were in the back in the World Series. I think it was like 2014 or 15.
It would, yeah, it would have been 2015. I'm from Cleveland. They beat us, so I should know. I'm pretty sure it's 2015.
So, I besides sitting there being bitter because I'm a White Sox fan, I was trying to think of, what the brand should be. And I was sitting there with my it's my ex-wife now, but we were trying to come up with names, and we were like, well, something maybe because we lived in downtown Los Angeles, what would be something that would be kind of fit in with those words? And so we came up with like Deep Tech Los Angeles, so I could pretty much use the acronyms for it. And then like I like something that's just like, because I come from the IT world, everything is an acronym, like pretty much every way to describe it. So it just kind of made sense for me to do it. And so then I created that entity, and then after maybe like a year of like throwing events and just creating some compilation specific, where it was just focused initially on underground producers in the Los Angeles area. So I wanted to create it bigger, and so I decided to leave that label and then take the brand with me and then create it as its own label. So at that point, though, I opened it up to be like more of an international label versus just focused on underground artists. And I have ideas of actually like doing this in some more other cities, like like downtown. There's DTLV, which is downtown Las Vegas, and there's a couple other DTs that I'm trying to think that, once I get this model successful to a certain point, why not repeat it in another city? Because like,
see, you can't. There he is. You can't turn the entrepreneur off, folks. That's just how it is.
Yeah, 100%. So, so there is bigger picture with that, where I don't even know, maybe there's European
There has to
cities
be.
that you can do it. Yeah.
There has to
So,
be.
so interesting enough, like the label is kind of what I created as a platform for me really to kind of get my music out. It's like,
Yeah.
don't let anything hold back getting your music out. And so it's become a platform. Like even this year, I've decided just to release majority of my music on my label. I mean, I still did releases on Ferris Wheel, and a couple
Cool.
other labels as well. Our Low Ceiling with the Don't Bleak remix, and also Freaking 909. But I said the philosophy of having your own label and just being able to say, like, what? Maybe it's not good for you. I still like it. I think people will like it, and you're just able to get it out, when you the other thing is too is like when you run your own label, we all are grabbing vocals from the same places sometimes, and sometimes like, it's funny, like I'm very quick to get my stuff out, like I'll produce it and then release it maybe like the next month or something like that. But then you hear like 3 months down, you see like everyone's using that same
Right.
sample for it. So that's another reason like why I like having my label. It's just because it's like, when you have your own vocalist, obviously it's not going to be out there. But if you grab something from Splice, or you grab something off the internet, or you grab something, off of something that's like popular or like that's gone viral or something like that, having your own label to get that thing out like right away is like, this is a benefit.
Yeah, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be meditating on that one. It's a really interesting angle that I think makes a lot of sense, and from what I'm picking up, probably most artists should consider in some regard. So you've also got me thinking we might need to, and again, I don't know when I would have the capacity to do it, but I just want to plant the seed now, and maybe you can help since you've been in this game longer. But I feel like if we're both active in the world of, just call it world of business outside of music, there's got to be a lot of other DJs and producers out there that are funding their efforts through whatever it is that they're doing as well. So it would just be cool to meet a lot more entrepreneurs and business professionals in this realm. So if you know anyone,
Yeah,
you can send me whoever is
I
coming
mean,
to mind.
I would like to have conversations if they figured out how to make money doing the music side of stuff. That's what I would like. So here's even a funny story. It's like, so when big data became popular, I'm a business partner with IBM, and IBM is always like, as soon as like some new technology comes out, they're like always like on top of it to act like they know what's going on with
Sure.
it, or like to market it very, like AI or the cloud, or like, so this was back when big data first came out. I was thinking to myself when I was doing music, I'm like, how can I apply what I know and like create something music wise? I was thinking about creating like, the database of like stats for music. And then it never happened. And then song stats came out, and I was just like, you ever have a situation where like you're like pulling your hairs like, yeah, that was my idea.
Right.
But I
Right.
wasn't able to do it. But that's kind of another approach I have because I have the IT background. Is like the music industry is a very archaic manual, like, if you really think about it, that's like the first really, even like how like distributors load music and do stuff. It's very manual, like it's a lot of steps of like where you have to create the metadata. It seems like in the future there will be better software to enable like the automation of a lot of stuff that goes on in the music industry,
Yeah.
even like video editing and all the kind of stuff that needs to go like in for like learning. Like that's one of the things I like pride myself on is that like, you know, I went from when I created the label and you realize like you spend all this money on doing like having to like have people do stuff for you. You're just like, okay, you know what, I need to teach myself Adobe. I need to how to do video editing. I need to know how to use Photoshop. I need to know how to do all this stuff so that from the grand scheme of things you can reduce your expenses to actually try to figure out how to make some money on per release.
I
So
think that, yeah, one of the you're joking but serious about how to make money doing a lot of this. I think you're obviously on the right path with the label. I just look at, again, I didn't ever pay attention to the first 10 years of Toolroom until recently. And you look at that body of work plus the last 10 years, like it compounds on itself just like anything. And if you're taking DTLA and going to be able to find the right people to plug it into other major metro areas, like I think that's already the right direction. And if you're listening to this interview now and you kind of feel connected in some way to myself or Jason, I would say please, but by all means reach out, because I think you might my it's gonna sound funny, but like one of my strengths is holding and hosting Zoom meetings, like a mastermind format, So if we can even just get like 5 to 10 people like us in one Zoom and just kind of see where it goes from there, that would be my wish to the universe from
yeah, it'd
this
be a nice,
episode.
nice
So,
like a user group to exchange, best practices. It would be
right, mastermind.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, great idea.
cool. All right, we went a little over, but totally worth it. had to do this one. Let everybody know. Actually, the one question I like to ask on these interviews specifically is, what's your favorite set that you've played? And then where is your like kind of a dream stage to play on for you?
Okay, so my favorite set was I did play at Ultra 2 years ago.
Wow.
Uh, and that was a fun. I did it back to back with DJ Ideal.
Wow.
So that was probably like one of my funnest, and like it was just like the whole 6 weeks leading up to it, like was just like an amazing experience. And then like that was the first time I had AAA passes in the back, and that was like a whole nother experience where you could just walk up. There was free booze. You could walk up behind the stage of like seeing Carl Cox play in front of like 30,000 people. That was just an absolute amazing experience. What was the second question? Because I
So
got
yeah, favorite set. That's pretty cool. And then I guess, yeah, dream stage or venue to play at.
so this was like one of the smaller stages at Ultra. So,
Okay.
I'd love to graduate to like like one of the main stages. It's just at any festival, to be honest, that
Right.
would be really cool for me. Maybe I guess dream wise, I think Tomorrowland is like the ultimate kind of like place where I would be like, that's you've made it. The
Right. That's the pinnacle for sure.
yeah,
I mean,
the
Ultra,
pinnacle.
as far as North America's concerned, that's I'd argue that's the pinnacle there. So we just got to get you to the main stage. Cool. Jason, let everybody know what you're working on right now and where they can go to follow you, like the one best place to follow you.
Sure. So I'm working on a couple tracks. Do you mind if I do a spot for ADE real fast?
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you're traveling to Amsterdam, we have a free event October 20th from noon to 10 p.m. I've got D Ramirez, Divine, myself, and we're also partnering up with Purple Tea Records. And it's going to be a fun event. Again, it's free and it's at Amsterdam, October 20th, Friday, from noon to 10 p.m. Stuff I'm working on some cool collabs with GOP. I've got about 2 or 3 singles that I'm kind of finishing up. It's kind of a lot of stuff kind of in motion. I'm doing as for Placebo Effect. I'm kind of like a sci-fi dork. So I like I saw this show called The Lazarus Project, and I love the opening theme song to it. So I created a remix. No one's done that, so kind of
Okay.
excited to finish that off. Placebo Effect and Redux Saints are both playing at ADE, so come on, swing on by.
Where at? What was the venue or the area?
It's called I think it's called 50 Hertz Cafe.
Okay.
But it's actually physically at Lunar Bar Lunar.
Cool.
Cool.
Nice. Well, guys, go see Redux Saints in Amsterdam in 7 days. It's going to be awesome. Jason, you're the man. And thank you for investing your most valuable resource with us, your time. Have a good one.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Dream Chasers, remember, in all you think, say, and do, take it to the next level.